the earliest curriculum and what children learn at nursery. In this video, we will cover the EYFS Earliest Curriculum and go over what children do at nursery and cover what children are expected to know by the time they finish preschool. But first, welcome to the channel. Welcome to the channel Open Nursery with myself, Kurt Lianya, where I teach you to open, run and grow your own childcare business. In today's video, we're going over the earliest curriculum and what children are expected to learn whilst they're at nursery and the first year of school in reception. The earliest curriculum is primarily structured around the EYFS statutory framework, which details what children should be learning in an early years provision. This earliest framework covers children up from birth until 5 years old, so it extends past nursery and childminder age to when they start reception in school. In year 1, they will start on the school curriculum, which starts at Key Stage 1 and Key Stage 2. The earliest curriculum in the EYFS statutory framework sets boundaries and guidelines around what children should be learning by the time they reach 5 years old, and breaks these down into different areas of learning. So before we go into these different areas of learning and what children learn whilst at nursery and in other childcare providers, it is important to stress and to remind you that all children develop at different stages and at different paces, especially when taking into account the different areas of learning. So don't necessarily use these guidelines as a marker to say what your child should or shouldn't be doing at a certain age. It's just useful to see what your child is capable of doing now and knowing what you can be pushing your child to do as a next step. In this video, I will give the different areas of learning, break them down into their different sections, and explain what children should be learning by the time they reach 5 years old. Starting with communication and language. In communication and language, children are taught in 3 different areas. Whilst at nursery, they'll be working on their speaking, their listening and attention, and their understanding. With speaking, by the end of reception, they should be able to express themselves effectively while showing an awareness of the listener's needs. They should be using past, present, and future forms accurately when talking about events that have happened, that are happening, or are due to happen in the future. And they should start to develop their own narratives and explanations of ideas and start connecting ideas or events. With their listening and attention, children will be encouraged to listen attentively in a range of different situations, listening to stories, accurately anticipating key events, and responding to what they hear with relevant comments, questions, or actions. With their understanding, children will be taught to follow instructions involving several ideas or actions, and to answer how and why questions about their experiences, and in response to stories and events. That is primarily what they'll be learning at nursery or in other childcare settings around communication language up until they turn 5. Another key area that they'll be working on within an earliest curriculum is their personal, social and emotional development. Again, within this, they'll be working on 3 key areas: making relationships, their self-confidence and self-awareness, and managing their own feelings and behaviours. With making relationships, by the time children turn 5, we will be helping them to play cooperatively, taking turns with each other, to take into account each other's ideas when organising activities, and to show sensitivity to others' needs and feelings. And we'll be supporting them to form positive relationships with not only their peers, but also with other adults. Whilst working on their self-confidence and their self-awareness, we'll be trying to make sure that children are confident to try new activities and develop the confidence to say why they may like one activity or one thing over another. They should start to show confidence while speaking in a familiar group, talking about their own ideas, and will be able to choose resources that they need for a specific activity. Plus, by the time you reach reception, they should hopefully be able to tell us when and when they do not need help. And finally, in managing feelings and behaviour, children will be talking about how they and others show feelings, talk about others and their behaviour and the consequences of certain behaviour, both positive and negative, and they should be developing awareness that some behaviour is unacceptable. They'll also work as part of a group and understand not only to follow rules, but why rules are important, and be able to adjust their behaviour to different situations and be able to take changes in their routine in their stride. The final key area that children will be working on whilst at nursery or other settings before they reach year 1 is their physical development, which incorporates their moving and handling and health and self-care. With moving and handling, children will show good control and coordination with both large and small movements. They will move confidently in a range of different motions, safely negotiating space and handling tools and equipment effectively. With health and self-care, children will learn the importance of physical exercise and a healthy diet for good health as they begin to talk about ways of staying healthy and safe. They start to manage their own basic hygiene and personal needs successfully, including putting their clothes on and going to the toilet independently. So as well as these 3 prime areas, communication, language, physical development, and personal, social and emotional development, there are also 4 specific areas that children will be working on whilst at nursery and before they reach year 1. They will learn about mathematics, literacy, understanding of the world, and expressive art and design. In mathematics, they learn about numbers as well as shape, space, and measures. With numbers, children will learn how to count reliably from numbers 1 to 20, be able to place them in order, and be able to say which number is 1 more or 1 less than a given number. As well as using quantities and objects, they will learn to add and subtract 2 single-digit numbers and learn to count on from or count back from in order to find the answer. As they continue to work on this, they'll begin to solve more complex problems like doubling, halving, or sharing. In shape, space, and measure, children are taught to use everyday language about size, weight, capacity, position, time, and money to compare quantities and objects and to solve problems. They learn to recognize, create, and describe patterns and explore characteristics of everyday objects and shapes and use mathematical language to describe them. In literacy, children learn about reading and writing. They begin to read and understand simple words or sentences, using phonic knowledge to decode regular words and read them aloud accurately. They may also begin to read some common irregular words and demonstrate an understanding when talking with others about what they have just read. They will also start to use their phonic knowledge to begin to write words that match their spoken sound, as well as writing some common irregular words. Though a lot of the work in the Early Years curriculum around reading and writing will be done in reception. Understanding the world. Here children learn about people and communities, the world, and technology. With people and communities, children are encouraged to talk about the past and present in their own lives and lives of their family. They will begin to understand that all people don't enjoy the same things and will begin to notice differences and similarities between themselves and others and amongst families, communities, and traditions. When learning about the world, children will learn about similarities and differences with regards to places, objects, materials, and living things. They will talk about the features of their own immediate environment and how environments might vary from one to another. They will make their own observations about animals and plants and explain why things happen and talk about changes. And finally, when learning about technology, they will not only learn how to use technology, but recognize that a range of technology is used in a variety of places, like at home or at schools, and be able to select a certain technology to use for a particular purpose. The final specific area within our Early Years curriculum is Expressive Art and Design. This incorporates exploring and using media and materials as well as being imaginative. In exploring and using media and materials, children will sing songs, make music, dance, and experiment with ways of changing them. They will demonstrate that they can safely use and explore a variety of materials, tools, and techniques, experimenting with different colors, design, texture, form, and function. Whilst being imaginative, children will use what they've learned about different media and materials in original ways, thinking about uses and purposes. They'll represent their own ideas, thoughts, and feelings through design and technology, art, music, role play, and stories. That essentially encompasses everything that children learn whilst at nursery up until they reach year 1. I hope this has given you an insight into what we try to support children to do whilst at nursery and the other childcare providers like childminders or preschools. If you want to support your child or your children in their development, then check out the documents that are available on the website opennursery.co.uk. There you can get tracking documents where you can measure where your child is at in different areas of learning, and different documents that go into more detail about these different areas of learning, helping you to set next steps for your children and to plan activities around them. Just check out the documents. I'll post a link both in the description and in the comments. To support you further, YouTube thinks you'll find this video useful. But before you go over there, don't forget to like the video if you found it useful, and don't forget to subscribe. God bless.